Hi there. Welcome. You are with the Carlsbad Hub of Vesta Divorce. My name is Laura McGee, and I am going to be hosting this evening. I'm a divorce mediator. I'm a co-parenting specialist. I'm also a divorce coach, so I've got 3 hats. Let me introduce you to the whole team. We have an exciting topic tonight. We are going to be talking about how to make use of AI tools in the process of whatever stage you're at of your divorce. Maybe you're just contemplating, maybe you're mediating, maybe you're litigating, maybe you're trying to figure out what you're supposed to be doing, and you're trying to get out of here in a way that you are more organized, spending hopefully less money. And I think one of the great things about the organizational tools you can get out of AI is it gets you more engaged and connected to your case. You're not handing it off to someone else. You're fully engaged. So we're going to talk about all of that tonight. So let's introduce ourselves. Ken, you want to take it away?
Thank you, Lauren. Welcome, everybody. My name is Ken Lee. I'm the family law attorney here in the Carlsbad Hub, and my whole practice is dedicated to nothing but family law. So I handle all issues in a divorce, whether it's custody visitation, child spouse support, or dividing assets and debts. And I handle cases from the start, whether it's a petition or a response, and all the way to the end if it requires a negotiation or a trial. But I also handle the cases that arise after divorce is final, because sometimes there has to be modifications of things that are in the judgment, whether it's support modifications or custody visitation orders changes and such. So looking forward to sharing some knowledge with you tonight regarding AI tools and giving you my legal perspectives on those issues. And so welcome. So with that, I'll pass it to Emily, our amazing mortgage broker.
Ken. Hi, everyone, and welcome, welcome. I'm the mortgage broker for the Carlsbad Hub, and I am broker owner of Encinitas, or Crest Funding in Encinitas for over 20 years. I've worked for decades with divorced couples and just helping them manage their finances. The family home is often not only the most important financial asset that they own, but it can also be the most emotional position when it comes to dividing assets. So we just go through and we do an exploratory period of deciding what makes the most sense for the spouses that are divorcing, keeping the family home, selling the family home, possibly retaining or deferring the sale. And I just help you navigate those steps and seeing what makes the most sense in a very difficult time. And Jennifer Cheney, who isn't here right now, she's my co-captain here as far as real estate goes. She's an amazing realtor, very experienced in the North County coastal and all over San Diego area. And she really is helpful in guiding people through the process. So she'll be joining us later in the webinar. Thank you. And then I'll introduce Cinda, who's our CFP.
Thank you, Emily. I'm Cinda Jones. I'm a CFP and I'm a certified divorce financial analyst. I only work in the divorce arena. I don't do traditional financial planning. I've been doing that for divorce only for over 20 years. And I help people develop settlement alternatives and review what their choices are for settlement and help them be informed and make informed decisions. So happy to have you here, and come back again if you'd like to hear it again.
Thanks, Cinda. Okay, so we've got a very big group tonight. We want to thank all of you for joining us. Just so you know that where we come from, Vesta has gone out into the professional community. They've found us one way or the other. They vetted us on your behalf. We've all been vetted by Vesta as being seasoned professionals and experts within our field. We've all been here with Vesta, or at least Vesta's been here in California, and Carlsbad was their very first hub since 2019. Pre-COVID, we were live. We've also started going back live. We aren't going to do it through the summer just because everybody's got too many fun things to do than come to a live webinar. But we've had such a great attendance and great support. I want you to know, if you are in the San Diego area, we host here in Carlsbad, and we plan to do 2 webinars in the future. One here online, recorded ideally, so you can come back and listen if you couldn't stay for the whole evening or missed it. And another one live if you want to attend in person. And we limit that one to a small group, no more than 15 people, to keep it more intimate. Kind of ask the experts. We don't necessarily have an overly specific topic. So that's a little bit more about us. And if you're a first-time finder of Vesta Divorce, They've been around for 13, I believe, going on 14 years now. And the mission of Vesta is to connect people and to educate and to help basically change the way people divorce. So we're very proud members of the Vesta team and the Vesta family, tribe, whatever we are. We're a big one. Vesta is coast to coast. I started off back in Boston, and the mission is something we all believe in, and that's why we're here volunteering our time to educate, inform, and essentially connect you to those that you want to be connected with. You'll find there's a poll that's posted, so please feel free to go and drop in the details of where you are in your process, because that helps us know maybe how to customize this a little bit and speak to that. There's going to be a Q&A opportunity at the end of the webinar, and we'll do our best to answer. We will not be offering advice, won't be like case specific, here's what you should do type of thing. We'll answer generic questions. Each of us offers complimentary consultations. So if you want a more specific, fine-tuned piece of advice or an answer, you're welcome to meet with any one of us. We don't all work in one office. We're all independently working within our own fields, all in the San Diego area, and some of us right here in North County. My business name is Leave Strong Divorce Services, and I'm located in the village of Carlsbad, but I work with people throughout the state of California because people can work over Zoom and I can file throughout the state. Ken, you want to share where you work? Where are your people? Who finds you? And what's the sort of scope of clientele that you
Sure.
get?
Thank you, Laura. So I'm located, my office is in Carlsbad, California, but I handle cases in all of the San Diego County courthouses. So I have cases filed here in North County, South Bay, and Chula Vista, out east in El Cajon, and the Central Courthouse, which is downtown. So if you're in San Diego County, there's no place I won't be able to file or handle a case. I litigate mostly because that's essentially what my world is, with people fighting about things in court. However, I don't limit myself to that. I have different services I offer, which, for example, you'll hear us talk later in the webinar about mediation and having a consulting attorney. Mediators, expert mediators who handle divorce cases like Laura, will do a great job of helping the parties understand the process and coming to an agreement within the parameters of the law, but they have to maintain their neutrality. That's what makes them effective. What that means, though, is if you're in mediation, you can't ask the mediator like Laura, do you think I could make a counter proposal on this and maybe get a better deal? Or is this really as good as it's going to get? If I went to court, can I get some better? She's going to tell you, as she needs to, that I can't go there. You're free to consult with an attorney and get perspectives. And that's where I can be helpful as a consulting attorney. I won't go into the mediation with you, but we can freely and frankly discuss all the proposals being made, strategize about counter proposals, things of that nature. We can get unvarnished advice that's in your best interest and get that preparation before you go back into the next mediation session. What I also offer is, I guess I'll call it a hybrid situation where maybe the one spouse and the other spouse just can't get along to the point where they're going to mediate, which I always wish they would, but they also aren't going into court to fight about every single little thing. And in that model of getting to the finish line, I'll represent one spouse and the other spouse will have their own attorney. And through the attorneys, we will go back and forth, negotiate, and ultimately come to an agreement, prepare a marital settlement agreement, and get to the finish line and get a signed judgment that way. Not as economically pleasant as a mediation, but definitely can be light years cheaper than fully litigating. I offer all of those roles in divorce cases, and I'm happy to modify my services as necessary to best fit the client needs in the situation.
Excellent, excellent. And how about you, Emily? What's the scope of how far can you take your mortgage expertise in terms of helping people land where they want to be?
Yeah, thanks, Laura. So I'm all up and down California. And then if there's any investment properties, I can go in most states, only in investment, not primary properties. So I just basically help my clients decide during a divorce what their long-term financial goals are. If it is keeping the family home, what does that look like for either spouse? We look at just long-term maintenance of that property. If there's any possibility of trading an investment property for that primary property, retaining the home, deferring the sale, or selling the home. So we really drill down on those options, seeing what does it look like for a refinance or a buyout? What do those monthly payments look like? I always tell my clients the most important thing is that when you're going through this transition, you can maintain your same lifestyle after you're paying that property. So that principal, that interest, those property taxes, and that insurance on that home, and long-term maintenance, and what their goals are. If it is set in stone, that's the property they want, and they want to raise their children there. And how can we make that happen? So just really deciphering what the goals are with real estate, particularly in California for primary properties. Outside of California, if there are other real estate owned or investment properties, looking at trade situations and just financially long term, what makes the most sense.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know we're going to have Jennifer's little bit delayed, but she will be joining us. Jennifer Cheney is an amazing realtor. And I'll just tell you one of the things that she does for me. My clients in mediation don't have to level up to the cost of an actual appraisal. Jennifer will go and do a comparative market analysis for them. And she's so active in the market and so on target. It's incredibly valuable. You don't have to do a Zillow Realtor.com. Yeah, I hope you got it. She does this as a complimentary service. And I know she's dedicated to San Diego County. But one of the things that she's done for me at times is when somebody is like basically they're up in San Francisco or something, she's got a connected network, and she's sometimes been able to connect me or my clients to another realtor who would also be a neutral and be able to do a comparative market analysis. So we'll hear more from Jennifer herself, but that's what we all do. I want us to hop into the webinar, but before we do that, I want you to know there's a Q&A box. We're going to answer live because we want to retain all of your confidentiality. You're here privately. Nobody knows you're here except the Vesta people and those of us that are speakers here tonight. So you're here anonymously. And we'll do our best again to answer questions. We have a fair bit to cover, but we always like to leave at least 15 minutes for some Q&A. So once again, thank you for being here. You are with the Carlsbad Hub of Vesta Divorce. So I'm just going to hop into kind of some general comments about AI. And then Ken and I are going to cover some of the legal uses, and then we're going to move into the real estate team. And if Jennifer is not here yet, we'll move to Cinda before the real estate team. That's going to be the flow tonight, okay? You can give your eyeballs a break if you want, Emily, and Ken and I will jump on together here. So I think one of the most important things to make sure that you understand is AI will not replace a professional, at least not yet. So you want to think of it as you've hired an assistant, and if the instructions you give your assistant are going to be just as important. If I tell my secretary, can you just type a note? That's what I'm going to get, a note. If I tell my assistant, can you prepare an email to my attorney explaining what my marital standard of living has been, and I want my attorney to know the following. That's a prompt that can produce a crafted letter if you fed it the right information. So it's your really good assistant. AI is also, I call it, A is for, of course, automation and the intelligence, but it's also, think of it as your assistant, okay? Not as a replacement. That's really important. Some of the things that you can think about AI doing is coordinating, organizing, and connecting you to your information. You want to be very mindful if you're going to put any financial documents into an AI bot that you anonymize it and you clean it. What do I mean by that? If you're going to put bank statements, for example, because you're looking for patterns of missing, where did the money go or how much cash was being withdrawn, for example, don't upload a bank statement that has not been anonymized. Redact it, use snippets, and don't use your names. Call A and B, for example, or husband and wife. Make sure you're protecting your data and your privacy. And also, since you're doing this involving another person, your spouse, be very mindful that you're not putting your actual details of who you are and who your spouse is. So absolutely keep that in mind. There's different ways to use it if you're mediating than if you're litigating. Maybe, Ken, do you want to give any preliminary statements, and then I'll talk about how you can use it best in mediation, and maybe you want to talk about how is some of the tools that apply more to litigation. I think you're muted, sorry.
Okay. What?
There you are.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. So with regards to litigation, yeah, a lot of times what we're seeing a lot is using it with regards to preparing exhibit summaries of documents, things of that nature, and also legal research. But the thing is, this I talked about caveat. It's happening a lot now in the legal world. Is attorneys are getting in trouble.
Yeah.
I would pass that along to people who are also doing research on their own, as far as their divorce case. Just using AI tools to see what the legal answer is, while it can be a potential starting point and help educate yourself, you really still need to verify that, whether it's to an actual attorney or some other means, and not just blindly accept what AI tells you. As far as going back to the question about what are we seeing in the litigation world, yeah, I think the biggest help is helping, for example, summarize documents and prepare summaries to be presented to the judge with regards to financial transactions, or for perhaps calendar summaries of trying to figure out what the real percentage may be on timeshare for visitation, so things of that nature, generally speaking, or it can actually be quite helpful.
Yeah, and as a compliment to what Ken's saying is, don't let it do your legal research, but here's what it can do. Like when I'm mediating, I'm asking clients, did you have anybody have a premarital asset? Or did you have an asset, for example, a home that the community, when you got married, you became a community, that the community moved into? So my brain's going, oh, you have a Moore Marsden claim. And I would literally say that out loud. Say, oh, you've got a Moore Marsden matter, and you're probably going to need to see somebody like Cindy to do the real math because it's complex. You know what you can do is you can ask AI, explain to me what's Moore Marsden, because even though I've probably explained it, the first time it's going to go right, because it's complex. It's complex. So if you're told, oh, this is going to be a Moore Marsden case, not a straight tracing case, now you can go to AI to not do your legal research, but to explain what that law means and how it applies.
Yes.
So the differentiation there is quite significant. As Ken is alluding to, lawyers have been caught and sanctioned for literally putting false citations in their briefs because AI hallucinates. And we don't want you hallucinating your way through your divorce, okay? Okay, so there's a tip on how you might use it to discern if my attorney or my mediator said, oh, this is going to be one of those Moore Marsden cases, you got to go see Cinda. Then it'll help you to understand what are the data points I'm going to need for Cinda to do an evaluation. So before you get to Cinda, you're like, oh, I'm going to have to go and find out what was my home, how much did I pay for the home? How big was my mortgage? So you're going to have a timeline that you're going to produce with documentation. So the point being, if you can show up with the information already prepared, you're going to have a nice tight package to hand off and to communicate to your CDFI, Certified Divorce Financial Analyst, sorry if I'm using acronyms, and then they can perform the Moore Marsden type of calculation, which is quite complex, right? Yeah. So that's one idea for you. Also, what happens, at least in mediation, and it wouldn't happen, Ken will tell you, in litigation. In mediation, you're putting proposals back and forth. One of the options that's available, not necessarily what you want to do, but in mediation, sometimes people want to buy out spousal support. What does that mean? It means instead of paying a monthly check for X number of years at X rate, you say, can I buy you out? I want to give you either more retirement or I want to give you X amount of cash. And what ChatGPT is very good at, it does math. I went to law school because I never wanted to do math, but I've spent my whole career doing it, ironically. But I love the ChatGPT. Here's an example. You can say, so my spouse needs $2,000 a month for the next 5 years. And then by then he or she will be finished their re-education and now is only going to need $1,000. There'll be a step down. And then when my children finish high school in 5 more years, I'm anticipating by then it would go to 0. If I paid my spouse out and I gave them the money now, present day value, meaning they can invest that lump sum at, say, 5% growth while taking the money out every month. This is a complex math problem. Trust me, you wouldn't do it on a napkin. How much money do I need to give them to take $2,000 a month for the next 5 years, $1,000 a month for 5 more years, and then it's 0? How much money do I need to give them today for them to be able to accomplish that at X% invested? So in about 12 seconds, maybe not even that long, it'll do all the math for you. And when I'm in mediating with clients and they are negotiating a buyout, I just let everybody hop into ChatGPT and say, okay, I have the professional one. So I'll put, you tell me what assumptions you want, and I'll put assumption versus assumption. And you have something to negotiate. Because when you're negotiating long-term spousal support here in California, it's no longer press a button. It's not the temporary support calculator. It's based on Family Code Section 4320, which has 14 factors. So it's the most subjective part of divorce. And so it's sometimes the toughest negotiation, very, very tough negotiation. So in the spousal support realm and other aspects of maybe swapping assets, and you want to know tax impact, like retirement's not taxed yet. So what's my California tax rate if I make $150,000 a year? What's my new rate in California and feds if I jump to $300,000 a year? You don't have to look up the tax rate. ChatGPT will tell you what to apply. So you can use it for information that's out there in the universe, would require research on your part. It's not giving you advice. Don't let it give you advice. It's not replacing experts. It's helping you do math and to apply the information that's out there. Thoughts, Ken?
Yeah, something along those lines where you're talking about spouse support. Again, not relying on it and substituting it for an expert like Cinda, but it can give you a good starting point and some perspectives in shaping your arguments. For example, in a part of those 43 Family Code 4320 factors that Laura mentioned, one of the factors is a broad one, is like balancing the hardships. You can use ChatGPT. If I had clients do this, and I'm doing it as well, is when you compile all the financial information, earnings, all of their expenses, which is taken from the income and expense declaration, and you put all of that in there, and you come up with, get ChatGPT to tell you after taxes and expenses and everything, how much disposable income does this person really have left? It gives you a perspective and helps shape some arguments because, number one, not only is balance of the hardships one of the factors, ability to pay is also a factor. So again, it's not like a silver bullet and a be-all end-all of, oh, I've got this report, now I'm just going to win with it. But it does help give you some perspectives on what the reality of the financial landscape is for the parties. And you can take that to your expert and be like, look, here is a starting point, at least, are areas of concern, and at least you can have more of a better starting point. Because sometimes you'll have people, and not because they're trying to be deceptive, but they'll have this perspective that I'm just getting killed here and I have nothing left, and it's just so unfair. But when you put in the numbers, it might not be as dire a situation as it is, and maybe it's not worth going down that road because it could backfire, and vice versa too. So some people might be thinking, I'm just my lot in life, I guess I'm just stuck doing this. But when you actually dig into the numbers and get some perspectives which are assisted by ChatGPT, it can really give you an idea that maybe there is something here and there are legs to an argument to potential modification and such. Instead of just these pile of numbers that we used to look at and hold your head and try to do your best to figure out, you can actually get a more real, again, not the be all end all, but get a much more realistic perspective, a starting point to potentially shape your arguments going forward. So it's very helpful in that regard when you're litigating issues like spouse support.
Yeah, excellent. Because that's definitely the most subjective one and can be the side. Yeah, pulling in all the matters. And also I had a client recently who husband was unfortunately fell into a pretty serious addiction. And she started noticing chunks of cash were missing. And so I said, anonymize your bank statements, redact, And instead of just being suspicious, go and essentially verify. So she took one whole year of bank statements and essentially asked ChatGPT to calculate how many cash withdrawals there were. And basically she basically had a list, and then she's okay, I don't pull cash out. I don't live in cash. I just use basically use my card all the time and then pay for it every month. And so she was able to bring that summary to her husband without just saying, there's a lot of cash missing. And he started off saying, what do you mean? What do you mean? Explain. So she was able to bring data, and data was part of her being able to say, you've acknowledged that you have a drug problem, and I really want to support you in treatment, but you're actually telling me you don't want to be in treatment. So now we're going to get a divorce. And there is a right of reimbursement to the community if you're breaching your fiduciary duty and misusing community funds for a non-community purpose. Ken and I worked on a case together a few years back now where husband was involved in affairs outside of the marriage. And there was a lot of spending related to it, hotels, etc. And wife wanted accounting, fair enough, because she's entitled to be reimbursed 50%. There's a little bit of confusion sometimes. Some people want, you spent 10,000, I want 10,000.
Yeah.
When you spend 10,000, 5 of it was yours. It belonged to the community. So 5 would go to the other person. But imagine, Ken, because that was before we had AI. Imagine how easier this would have been, how
It would have
laborious
been,
that task was. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember the parties were pouring through piles of records and
Yeah.
doing it the hard way with a highlighter and a hard copy.
Yeah. Pink and blue and years and years of credit card statements. So explain this, explain that.
Yeah.
It was very emotionally challenging too, having to do it that way. It just kept them inside this battleground, as opposed to, here you go, here's the data. It speaks for itself. $20,000 in cash has come out of our account in the last 6 months. I don't take cash out, and you've acknowledged you have a drug addiction. I want $10,000 back. So it can simplify, and it can almost lift some. It doesn't lift all the emotion, of course. It's a hard thing to deal with. But at least instead of you're just a feeling, oh, I feel like a lot of cash is missing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's a reality check. To put it
exactly
in vernacular. Yeah.
Yeah, precisely. And then I also work in a coaching practice where I'm quite often helping people at the preliminary stages and then sending them to Ken or even other attorneys. But I like to be able to send them well prepared. And part of preparing a client to have to level up to attorney if they can no longer self-represent is, again, the client needs agency, needs to know, these are all my records. I've had some help putting everything together. You don't show up at Ken's office with a handful of receipts and say, here, you figure it out.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
AI can really help you with checklists. There's Form in California if you are just beginning your divorce process, Form FL for family law, FL-142. It's the table of contents of all the assets and debts that you're going to have to produce information about. So you can just take that form, use that as your checklist, and, okay, how many different bank accounts do we have, et cetera. That form becomes your checklist. And then while you still have access to as many accounts as possible, because I realize once divorces get rolling, if they're going to be contentious, all of a sudden your password got knocked out. But while you still have access to these joint accounts or even each other's accounts, it's a good time to start downloading the documents so you have them available and you don't have to subpoena them. And you can use AI then to then do what we're talking about, to use it to anonymously assess, is there a pattern here? Is there something? Or quite sometimes people think that if the person cheated on me, then they must therefore also be defrauding me out of thousands and thousands of dollars. But sometimes things that seem opposite can be true. Some might have had a infidelity emotionally, but there might really be no money missing. That they're honest in every other way, shape, and form. They just weren't courageous enough, perhaps, to ask for a divorce when they'd already emotionally left the marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thoughts on that, Ken? Because I think it's worth talking about our no-fault system here and thinking that you can make this work, but what is it going to get you? Don't overwork yourself would be my other advice. Go ahead.
Exactly. And that's a good point. because California is a no-fault state. In the old days, you had to, in order to get divorced, you used to have to prove one of the common law grounds. And infidelity was one of them. Of course, everyone's favorite was because it just sounds so funny. I think they made a movie with the title Intolerable Cruelty. But anyhow, the point is we're no fault state. So just because someone was unfaithful, that doesn't factor into the analysis at all. But what people do get confused about is when, like what we were just talking about, if there was one spouse who was spending money on another partner, someone outside the marriage. Obviously, that involves infidelity, but it's not the fact of being unfaithful that is relevant to the divorce. It's the fact that there was money being spent for non-community purposes. We've all had the crazy cases where someone was spending money not just on trips and hotel rooms, but all the way up to paying for an apartment for a paramour or things like that. That, again, an expenditure like that's clearly for non-community purposes is grounds for reimbursement. And Laura really already in talking about the other case that she had going on involving gambling or addiction, it can extend to beyond infidelity. So we've all had cases where it involve things like gambling addictions, which is just tragic. But obviously someone spending community money and losing massively at the track or in Vegas or what have you, that's obviously non-community purposes. It's not paying bills. It's not for the benefit of the community. So that's another expenditure that would be the grounds for reimbursement back to the community and to the spouse who lost out on that.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And part of the tip is, Ken said it many times too, you don't want to spend $10 on a $5 problem, right? So if it turns
Very
out
true.
there's a right of reimbursement for $5,000, but you've asked your attorney to subpoena all these records that were available to you before you started the fight,
Yeah.
it's a losing game. So
Throw money away.
yeah, I think one of the most important things and one of the many differences between couples that choose to mediate, and by the way, you don't have to be best friends to mediate. You're probably not. You're getting a divorce. You do need to be respectful, but you have to be respectful in court as well. You don't get to cuss your partner out in a courtroom. It's no different in mediation. So I find that couples that come to mediation really acquire an agency, a very personal knowledge of what they have, what they owe, how they got to this place financially. It's not going to be therapy. It's not going to tell you how you got here emotionally. But they're like, oh, yeah, we had a squirrel and a spender, and we didn't keep joint accounts, and we didn't have transparency. We didn't work as a couple. We weren't like business partners, and we didn't plan our future and do this all together. And now we can see it. It's here in black and white.
Yeah.
It can reduce the blame and shame and help you to understand. Unfortunately, we did get here, and this is both of us, to like, don't show me, don't tell me, I don't want to know here, or somebody wanting to know every nickel where it goes, whatever brought you there. I find that so much conflict lives in the gap between an expectation and a reality. Conflict really lives here. And the goal is to reduce that to as much as close as possible to a zero. And information is the superpower, in my opinion, to dissolving that, except in cases where people don't care about the information, don't care about the law, and want their way anyway. Those are expensive litigated cases.
It's called litigation.
Yes, litigation. And it's called crazy litigation when it goes all the way to trial because somebody is not reality checking.
Yeah.
They just cut off the nose to spite their face kind of thing. So one of the values I find, if you're willing to move into highly informing yourself, is you're already going to stop trying to cast blame and go, okay, this is where we are. Doesn't matter how we got here. This is where we are. Now, what do we want to do about it? So I find the information can help neutralize some of the conflict. Do you find that, Ken, I know it's harder when people are already in the fight.
Yeah, sure. But it is true. The context in which I run into this a lot is in litigation, is a lot of times in the context where there has to be what's called an income available support analysis.
Yeah.
Actually, Cinda's helped me out in a couple of these cases. And the point is, the context is this. If both parties are W-2 employees, it's a real easy day. And the bottom line is your W-2 is going to show what you earn each year. You break that, your pay stubs are going to correlate to that. It is what it is. But with regards to cases where one party owns businesses or a business and they are, of course, getting some W-2 income, but under the law, there's a lot more potentially that gets added back as add backs. For example, if someone owns a business, they're running their car payment, their cell phone, their gym membership, their club membership, all of that stuff is getting run through the business. So that under the law, the expectation is that has to get added back and count as income available for support. So in those contexts, of course, the spouse who isn't really privy to the business, they have this idea that the other spouse is getting just hundreds of thousands of dollars a month and they're living high on the hog, and I'm being ripped off. He's hiding it or she's hiding it from me. I'm getting screwed and this is BS and we got to go out and get them. And what ends up happening a lot of times is once that analysis is done and we end up having to retain an expert like Cinda to do it. And it turns out that actually they were pretty much telling you what they really earn is what they earned. And that delta, that unknown, like disappears, and it's, oh, a lot of times there's deflation, but a lot of times there's acceptance. Okay, someone who doesn't have a dog in this fight actually told us that's really what it is. So I feel like I haven't had enough cases yet involving AI and such in that context, but as Laura's pointing out, I think as we move forward, and if AI can help compile that information and kind of give you a reality check based on just plain data, not suspicion, not hunches, but looking at actual financial data and help the parties realize maybe that unknown really is not a basis to believe that I'm being ripped off. And there actually really is. We are pretty close to what is being represented once the actual statements and data was put together. I think that can, like you're saying, Laura, be very helpful in eliminating that mindset that we've got to litigate, we've got to fight about everything, we got to subpoena everything, we've got to spend 100,000 on discovery, on depositions, and demands for production. Because if you can see from the information that really the delta is either not that big or maybe not doesn't exist, I think you could really remedy that and hopefully bring people to a more sensible resolution.
How much quicker because the information, and I had a couple recently where both of them have a lot of cash. He works in handyman and she's a hairdresser. So their tax returns look like they don't make that much as a family. They look like they made $50,000. So I said, okay, go back 1 year. How much did you have in savings? Did you owe anything in debt? And let's do a whole year and look at what you spent and what did you have in savings and what did you have in debt? And I did suggest, I said, go into your AI and take a look because you guys would have had to throw some cash in just to make your mortgage payment. So some of this cash is visible, shall we say. And they had more savings and no debt on both sides, even more savings after 12 months and no debt in the beginning and no debt in the end. But apparently they made $50,000 and managed to have 2 car payments and a mortgage and their kids, all the stuff we just did. Here's what you spent. So clearly you didn't make $50,000. Okay. So we can reverse engineer it. And having them do that, they kind of went, oh, yeah, okay, we get it. Yeah.
Exactly.
In fact, they came to the conclusion that they both earn almost the same amount of money, which was
great. And that diffuses so much conflict right there.
Completely. So again, information, superpower. Real information, correct information, super duper power.
Yes.
Yeah. The other thing I think it can help you with, Ken, you can comment on this. If you do have to litigate and you have an attorney and you start, I get it too in my own, I try to not have people email me, they still do. And I think they pick up their iPhone and dictate. There's not even a paragraph break. It looks like to me, I call it vomit on a page because it's so hard to read. It's jumbled, disorganized, and it's 7 topics all mooshed into one large paragraph.
Yes.
It costs you more for us to read something that's really hard to decipher and to pull out, is there a question here? Have you ever talked to people like that? They talk in paragraphs and they don't actually, they say, oh, I have a question, but they haven't brought the question to you.
Yeah, you still don't understand what's being asked.
Yeah, is there a question?
For an hour. Yeah.
So you can take what you want to say to your attorney. You can put it into ChatGPT. Don't tell ChatGPT, write an email to my attorney. Same as I said at the beginning, if I tell my secretary, type a note, that's what she should type on a page, a note. But if I tell her, if I give it a prompt, I want my attorney to understand what my marital standard of living was. And here's what I think are the important points and what I want him to or her to understand. And I put it in, organize this in nice bullets and set it up so that this attorney can read it in the 0.5 billing instead of half an hour.
Exactly.
Would that work for you, Kim?
That'd be great. And it would save the clients a ton of money.
Yeah.
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 Because if you can have a tool like AI just succinctly and concisely explain what the issue is that you're trying to ask about, it's so much more efficient. And at the end of the day, takes less time, which then translates into less legal fees being spent.
Even preparing for a meeting with your attorney, because you set aside X amount of time and you could reach out to your attorney and just say, okay, do we have an agenda? What do we want to accomplish in this meeting? Because your attorney's probably got an agenda, what they need to accomplish, because the court wants something or the attorney wants something. The attorney sends you an agenda, and then you can say, okay, I'm going to respond to this agenda. And is there anything that would help me to get more organized? And think of it again as an assistant organizational tool, not to replace all the experts here. But we should all be able to do more in less time, put it that way. We should be able to push more, which means you're going to spend less time on legal fees, less time in mediation, less time wandering around in circles waiting for your divorce to be done. And you're going to do differently. Yeah.
Correct.
And sometimes it helps you even, maybe I've had clients say to me, this is my first divorce. I don't know anything. And so maybe you just want to know, how does the divorce process work in California? There's a video on my website if you want to look at it. That's what mediation looks like. But maybe you just have some simple, help me to understand what the timelines are. How fast do I have to produce this information? And you don't have to ask your attorney. I mean, it's just public information. I'm saying it's public information. We used to go to the library. You don't have to walk to the library and go through the Dewey Decimal System, because I'm from that era, and figure out where the book is that somebody misplaced it in the aisle and figure out which chapter it's in.
Yes.
You can say, I'm initiating a divorce and pleadings were just filed and I was served on this date. How long do I have before I have to present my lawyer with all this financial information?
Yeah.
Make sense? Yeah.
Very much.
Sometimes even terms. What is community property?
Yeah.
You don't have to ask your attorney. You can ask ChatGPT for a definition. How is community property defined in California? Now, there's going to be some fine tuning to that, so you still want to talk to your attorney. But what's joint custody? What does that mean? Is that always 50-50? What's 50? So you can ask curious questions, but then whatever answers you get, bring them back to your mediator or your attorney to get clarification. I do get people coming in here in mediation and they're like, oh, I already researched child and spousal support, and wow, it turns out that I'm gonna get screwed, because they didn't ask any of the right questions. Don't ask it to do a support calculation.
No, definitely don't do that.
Yeah. Let me think of some other. You can help it to make lists of questions to interview an attorney or a mediator, or interview who you want to hire as an expert. Because you basically know what you want to accomplish. What questions should I ask? Because sometimes you don't even know where to begin.
Something that I think is also helpful too. It's helpful to just ask if you're trying to establish something or what financial, for like trace something or something such as a reimbursement community. You believe the community is entitled to reimbursement. You can ask ChatGPT, again, not from a legal standpoint, like, am I entitled to this? You can, but the point is the mechanics of it. What I mean by that is you can ask what types of documents would I need, and it can be helpful. If it's obviously, some things are obvious, like a bank statement, but if it's something more nuanced, maybe it'll give you ideas of what other types of documents could potentially prove that, whether it's a tax return or a W-2 or a bank statement or things of that nature.
Picture of a crypto wallet.
There's that.
Yeah,
Yes,
might be that.
exactly.
Of their Cashy account that money's moving in and out of. Like all the stuff that is harder to get your hands on, but maybe you got a picture of that, possibly something. Yeah, all of these things, because assets have become harder to, transparency has become harder if you're in a litigated divorce, because everybody's getting their statements to their email. We used to get mail.
Exactly.
Remember mail? Remember that?
I know, right? Envelopes.
Yeah, exactly. With
Pieces of
stamps.
paper.
Who has those anymore? Yeah, but it can make spreadsheets for you. I'm not a spreadsheet person, but it can actually make a spreadsheet. So you don't have to know how to operate Excel or Google Sheets. You can actually say, can you make me a spreadsheet with these data points? And then you've got something that you can potentially hand back to your attorney or your mediator. It can summarize. I had clients that even when you have a W-2, connected to the W-2 is an explanation of what each box means. But when somebody gives you their W-2, they don't always give you that extra information. And I had a client suggest he did not have a 401k, which made no sense because he worked for a very large company in a very high level position. I didn't know which box to look in either. I asked ChatGPT, which box do I look in if I'm trying to see if there's been any 401k contributions for the year? And I'm like, oh, box 12. Okay, no, okay. So sometimes it's just helping you to understand how to read a document that's complex. That's
That's a great point.
yeah. Because most of us don't read our W-2s. We're going to go to box 5 to find your income, by the way,
Yeah.
because box 5, and there's several boxes. Box 1, income available that's on your W-2, you want to know to look at box 5. So
Yeah.
getting hold of a tax return is not always sufficient if you're filed jointly, because we can't tell who earned what portion of the income from a tax return.
Yeah.
A W-2 will say, oh, box 5 of this person's W-2, box 5 of this person's W-2. Now I know who earned what portion of the community income for the year.
Yeah.
Go into the data. Go into the data. Let's see. Do not, I had clients recently come to me and ask me if I would be willing to review and edit their ChatGPT version of a marital settlement agreement. My answer was no. I would have to redraft it no matter what, because we went to law school for a reason. We didn't just get our ChatGPT license.
Yes.
Not a cracker box license.
Yeah.
This is a legal document that's going to define some things that are impermeable, that will not change. And some of it is, they wanted, for example, 0 spousal support order, which was absurd. And because wife was going to become a hairdresser and husband was making $350,000 a year. He didn't think he needed to pay child support because he was going to pay for a couple of miscellaneous things. So I'm like, you can write that down, but I'm not fixing it. You can come and mediate and we'll start over again. Yeah, start over again. Anything else, Ken? Is really be sure to keep all sensitive, no social security numbers, no bank statements.
Sanitize your documents that you upload.
Sanitize none of your names. Don't put anything out there.
Socials. Well,
Yeah. It doesn't even have to be husband and wife. It can be AB or just your first initial of each of you,
Yeah.
so that it's as anonymous as possible.
Yeah.
Think of this again as your assistant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that, Ken, before we hand it off?
I
to the
think that's
rest of
pretty
you?
much it. I think we
Mhm.
covered it. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to hand it off to our real estate team. And thank you so very much for letting us start with the lead part.
Hi there. I am late to the party. I'm a little late. I jumped on late. Emily, where do we, I kind of just jumped in.
I can start first and we can kind of go back and forth. I think that
Yeah.
might be, yeah,
Perfect.
perfect. Okay. So we're talking about how AI affects financial and real estate and divorce in general. From my perspective, and I just had a recent engagement with AI on the lending standpoint. But again, I'm the mortgage broker for the hub in Encinitas. I do see AI coming into play a little bit with us, mostly with financial readiness, like helping people prepare on can they afford the home or what is their financial responsibility, and how they do that is AI is only, to start with, AI, especially in such a personal level when it has to do with finances, is only as intelligent as you make it. So are you plugging in numbers? Does it understand your actual situation? Are you ready to take over that home? Does it know what your employment looks like? How are you employed? Are you W-2'd or are you self-employed? So there's a lot of, you can cast that real general web with AI, but unless you're really educating it to be so specific and drill down on your actual situation, it can be very general. And sometimes being very general can be somewhat hurtful and just not the right information that you're looking for. So what I'm seeing is when it's actually helpful is when it's like you're planning your scenario. Can I afford or can I take on this mortgage? Or what happens if my support changes? Or can I assume this mortgage? And sometimes it can look into who the current mortgage carrier is and if an assumption is even possible. Or it can help you work out what qualification requirements are necessary in order for you to take over the mortgage. or a refinance versus an assumption. It can help compare scenarios. Do I want to keep the house? Do I want to sell the house? And what are capital gains? So it can help you with a lot of those. But again, it's not going to really get down to the nitty-gritty of what your family is all about, which can be somewhat a little bit scary because the advice might not be fully educated on what you're personally dealing with. So in my world, really what it's helpful for is like the basic categories. What is the doc prep for, can I take over the house, or can I take over the other rental properties or investments that are happening here? What is my financial position? And so you're actually putting in numbers, and you're looking at your assets and your liabilities, and it's really a hodgepodge of what information are you giving it in order for you to receive the right information back, which I think can be tricky. I could definitely be tricky. I just had a recent scenario where actually on Monday, where it's a divorce situation, and he is looking to purchase another home during the divorce. They have never owned real estate before. They have a little girl, 1 years old, and it looked like AI, like an AI bot that was helping him on the financial end, that said it recommended a mortgage at 6.5%. He was paying almost 1 point to get there. And I came in, and luckily the real estate agent on that side trusted me and said, "Hey, this doesn't sound right. He's paying almost 15,000 to get this rate. What can you do?" And we readjusted everything immediately. And I came on the phone and was actually able to talk to the listing agent, obviously my buyer's agent, and just be the person that would be their confidant and kind of walk them through the process, and definitely not pay a point on a mortgage right now because it doesn't make sense. We're hopefully headed in a place where we'll see interest rates drop, and you can never recover that $15,000 in fees. So I think there's a balance. It is an amazing asset in finance. But when it comes to particular situations, I think it can be very tricky and somewhat misleading unless you're, again, casting that wide net of, just like Laura and Ken were saying, with not the specifics, but hey, how do I structure the big picture with things? And how do I navigate maybe some of the basic steps? Because honestly, the more organized you are in your financial picture, the faster and the smoother the lending process goes, the real estate acquisition or the real estate selling process goes. But NAI can't really answer that at this point unless you're really in there educating it and it knows exactly who you are and what you're all about. But I'm glad, Jennifer.
Yeah. So I'll introduce myself really quick, and then I'm going to go into I'm pretty heavy on AI these days. So I want to break it down a little simply too, because I think it's a great piece. And you guys, I just popped in like 5 minutes ago, but you guys may have already said that, but I'm Jennifer Cheney. I'm the real estate agent in the hub. I've been in the business for 23 years, and about 6+ years ago, I went through my own divorce, and now I specialize in divorce real estate. So a lot of times I become the strategist of, do I keep or sell the home? We talk about all different strategies. How do you keep it? Do you need to do a buyout? Or do you do a buyout? Do you need to sell it? Can you get a renter in for a short amount of time? We go through a lot of different strategies to work through that process. But AI is amazing for many different things, but it needs context. So I'm going to give you an acronym. It's RCT. It needs a role, it needs context, and it needs a task. That is the only way to get clear inputs out of AI. If you are just generally going in, just asking it a question, and it knows not the role that it's supposed to be, not the context around it, or the task associated with it, it will give you generic output. And so if you give it those 3 items and all of these different professionals that you're hearing tonight, be my divorce strategist in real estate, be my divorce certified lender, be my financial advisor, be my mediator, be my attorney, whatever it may be, you need to start with the role first. And then as you go into the context, you ask it questions or you give it the direction on what's happening. So let's just keep it on the real estate end right now, to keep or sell your home. you're going to tell it the financial part of it. Here's my mortgage. Here's the interest rate that it's at. Here's all my expenses. Here's what I make. Anything that you can give it context wise. My children are only here for 2 more years and I may sell after that, after they get out of the house. All of the items around the home, how much deferred maintenance you have in the home. I know the roof's going to leak. I know that the HOA has been breathing down my neck because there's an assessment coming down the pike. As much as humanly possible as you can give it in context. And the best part about ChatGPT, for one thing, is here's my little microphone, you can talk to it. So don't think that you need to write all this out. You just talk to it and you can talk like you're talking to your friend. And it will decipher all that information just as you're talking to it and give you a great output. And then you need to give it a task. So when you're giving it the role of be my financial real estate expert, you're giving it the context as far as here's what I owe on the home, here's what it's worth, here's my husband wants me to stay here, I want to buy him out, whatever it may be, all of the ins and outs of the decision on whether to keep or sell the home. And then the task is, I need you to help me and give me the pros and cons of both different avenues. The pros of keeping the home, the pros of selling the home, the cons of keeping the home, the cons of selling the home. And that's the task. And you will be amazed if you put that specific prompt in there, the output that you will get. So I wasn't here a few minutes ago to see if you guys started with that conversation on AI.
We
But
did not. That was amazing.
okay, good. So
That was
our
like the nuts and bolts.
so
Okay.
RCT, role, context, task. The more defined you can get, the better. That is truly the only way to really work with AI. And then I get this question all the time, especially on the financial piece. I'm afraid to upload my financial statements. I'm afraid to do all this stuff. If you think about it this way, there's a lot of different versions of AI right now. So I'll just get a little bit overview. But you've got ChatGPT, and then you've got the new, not new, but everyone's migrating to Claude. And Claude has a desktop version. And if you have a desktop version, if you've actually downloaded the AI onto your desktop, it is a container on your desktop. So anything that you would put in a Google Drive, that's your financial statements. I have my Social Security in Google Drive. All of my financial statements are in Google Drive. It is safe to work off of my Claude desktop and have it access all of my financial documents that are in Google Drive. The problem is when we get into the open AI and you're just online, just on the web version, that's when it can get a little squirrely when you're asking it questions. But if you are semi-comfortable with AI and you have it on your desktop, it can go to work for you. You can say, scrub all my financial documents and give me a clear outline of my income and expenses. You can upload all those and it can really give you some great spreadsheets and give you that output of clarity to analyze and really compare on the house side or the mortgage side if it makes sense to keep or sell the home. The biggest thing with AI is it helps you ask better questions. That's really what it's really designed for. So the more you give it, the more it will give you in the output of asking better questions to your team. It does not replace divorce professionals or anyone in this space as far as needing to talk to a CPA or a real estate agent or a lender or a mediator, attorney. It doesn't replace people, but it will help you ask better questions if you give it the right information. So one thing I did for you guys, because I'm so AI, I'm going to put this in the chat, is I designed a prompt for prompts are everything that role, context, and task. That's everything that you want to give it, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude, whatever. I designed a prompt around the conversation of real estate, whether to keep or sell the home. So if you're navigating a divorce and trying to decide whether to keep or sell the home, it's a simple prompt that you can just copy and paste. I'll put it in the chat so you guys can have it. But it says, I'm going through a divorce and need help deciding whether to keep or sell my home. That's the role. I'm going through a divorce. That you're kind of giving it, hey, I'm going through a divorce and I need you to be my divorce strategist regarding real estate. Here are my details: my current home value, my mortgage balance, my monthly payment, including taxes and insurance, my income, other monthly expenses, estimated buyout amount, if applicable. Can you help me evaluate whether keeping the home is financially realistic? Compare the pros and cons of keeping versus selling. Show me what my monthly financial picture might look like in each scenario, and suggest key questions I should be asking my realtor, my lender, my financial advisor before making this decision. And then I said, keep the explanation simple and easy to understand, because that's where it can get a little complex. So you want to just direct it to streamline it to keep it simple. So I'll put that prompt in the chat, but I swear if you just kind of tweak it and use it and add information and give it more context even than what I even put in, you may be surprised by the output. It doesn't replace calling somebody and going through all these steps. You need to call a lender and go through all these steps. Do not just, if it says you should sell the home or you should buy out, you need to make sure and verify that all of this is correct, but it will help you ask better questions. That's what it's designed for. So it will give you the data to where then you can go back to your mediator, back to the real estate agent, back to the lender and say, here's what I'm thinking. Tell me if this is okay. Tell me if this is along the lines. What am I missing here? Did I forget about capital gains? Did I forget all those pieces? It will help you ask those better questions.
I love that. I love it. It does. It just educates you for a background, like a basis of where you can launch from. And like you said, Jennifer, just some questions that you didn't even know to ask. It's really good in educating people. It is not a replacement. I think talking to a professional is always so important. And that's what we provide at Vesta, is just like a whole team of professionals to bounce ideas off of once you start that diving deeper into that investigative phase. So that was awesome.
Somebody just asked if it's in the chat now. It's not. Give me 2 seconds and I'll pop that in the chat. But I'm typing that in right now. But it will be in there within the next minute. But it's not there yet. So you should be able to see it. I just want to finish out our discussion. Okay, so anything else I really think, so one of the things too, actually, I think is great for this and for AI and this whole conversation is that deferred maintenance piece that I mentioned, because it can help you get some estimates and guesstimates on what things cost. If you're experiencing certain issues, it will just you can pull in where you live and where kind of the normal basis of handyman work and license work or whatever, but it will build you that spreadsheet on, hey, I have a roof that needs to be fixed in 5 years. I have a 2,000 square foot home. It is really great at that and giving you guesstimates. And again, it's just a piece of the information that you can then go back to analyze and evaluate if the decision to keep or sell the home is right.
Yeah, that's so true. It's the more information, the more education, the more power. It just helps you make the best decisions moving forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just it right now. And hopefully it won't be too much information to where it doesn't. Actually, why is mine only host and panelists? Where can usually I can do to everyone. Oh, maybe it's because I wasn't a co-host. Oh,
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura.
We just want to make sure we got
Just a
enough time for Cinda.
Yep, we're done.
Oh,
Sorry. Sorry. Thank you.
Take it away, Cinda. It's all to you.
I think you guys covered it all. I can't think what else I might add. So I'll just say that I think you've gotten good advice, and go ahead and give AI a choice. And I would just say it's never the final answer. You might want to vet it with someone who has some experience. So you can wrap it up. Thank you.
okay. Thanks, everybody. Let's pull in and we're going to answer some questions that are here. Answer everything live. And gosh, it's so much information, but it's like drinking out of a fire hose sometimes. Everybody come on in. Whole group. Come on in, Cinda.
Okay.
And we'll take the Q&As, and I want to thank you for all your questions. We may not get to all of them, but I'm going to cover a couple of questions that are right here in the Q&A box because we like to answer everything live. We want to make sure that everybody's anonymous, put it that way. Let's see. Somebody asked, what do you mean by assumptions? What I mean, if I was speaking of don't assume, verify, that's what I might have meant by don't assume that just because somebody's cheating on you that they're financially stealing from you. Like assumptions, what's the acronym? Ask you me?
Yes,
Assume,
right.
assume,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And fear, false expectations appearing real. That's my other one that I like. So assumptions lead to fear. Fear leads to amygdala behavior, the small brain, the lizard brain, that fear, flight, fight. So investigate, fact check, verify, because your assumptions may not be correct. If you mean assuming alone, then we'll turn that one back over to lender. Definitely.
Yeah. So assuming if that is what you're referring to, that is super easy to figure out. It's basically just calling the current company that is servicing your loan. And that's always on your mortgage statement. And it's just calling them directly and the service provider and saying, hey, is this loan assumable? I've actually called for borrowers on their behalf and found out in several circumstances that it is. Even loans at 2.5%, 3.5% that were in place during COVID. So yeah, that is something that it's definitely worth researching, but you do have to, it's usually like a nominal fee, $250 or whatnot versus a full refinance, which would be considerably more. But after you pay that fee, you do provide them financial information just to make sure that you can take over that loan. But it's a quick and easy process. As long as your finances are in place, then you can assume some loans, but it's one phone call to find out.
And you still have to qualify.
You still have to qualify, yeah, with
So
updated documents.
Yeah. So just to clarify, because this is something that happens a lot in mediation, and Ken will tell you it never happens in litigation. So an assumption would be in your negotiation, the couple agrees that one of you is going to be allowed to take over the mortgage. And it's going to take a while because the assumption requires a divorce. They won't let you do an assumption, a death or a divorce. And presumably your spouse isn't going to die before the divorce. So the divorce is the trigger event. And I've had couples try to start an assumption before they were divorced, just based on their marital settlement agreement. And although that's a contract in California, fully enforceable civilly, the lenders, because they're nationwide and they call it a decree. We call it a judgment in California. Welcome to California. So they need that for you to even apply. Like Emily says, she can help you determine, would you qualify? She could even help you run those numbers. Like,
Sure.
is it even possible? Or you just kind of smoking weed, not thinking?
Yeah. I just had that exact situation, Laura, where he was like, we don't have the decree in place. And that's one of the check the box before we can apply for an assumption. So it's just, you kind of sit and wait until you get through the system. Yeah,
Right.
for sure. Yeah.
And in a negotiation, if you get to assume a mortgage, say it's 3.2%, you've got something incredibly valuable. So you're probably going to have to trade something for that. So not only are you going to have home court advantage, especially if there's children that you're going to have the family home, and you're going to have this permanent, like next 20 years or something, of a low interest mortgage. You're also going to have the property tax basis because the other person's going to move out. I just was with a couple today. He's going to keep the $900,000 home, and now she has to buy a home. And for her to buy a $900,000 home when they bought that home for $450,000, he has a permanent property tax basis. Hers is 1.1% of a new $900,000 mortgage. At what? What's the rates today? 6-ish?
Yeah, around 6.25. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's night and day. So they'll never be equal. So in a mediation, this becomes part of your negotiation. So back to the AI speak, you can run a comparison side by side. Like over the next, say, 15 years while we're raising children, my former spouse gets to assume this mortgage. We'll spend this much in mortgage, property taxes, et cetera. And if I bought something similar, what will I spend? And now you've got a chart to negotiate with, like Jennifer was saying. So it gives you the power with data to negotiate with real numbers. Yeah. Okay, somebody asked me about trying to get records. Can the difference between a subpoena, the dollars? Do you see the question? What
Yeah.
between getting initial bank statements, which I think I can request, and a subpoena?
Yeah. If you yourself as account holder can just ask your bank, obviously do that. To pay a lawyer to submit the subpoena and process all that, which is expensive. The subpoena typically comes into play in the context of where you are not the account holder, like the other spouse is the account holder, and you don't have access to it, and you're trying to get to records that they themselves have and maintain because they have some account where you were never listed as someone on the account. So that's the context we've been talking about.
I think banks can only go back 7 years, right?
And that's true as well. No,
So
no matter
forget
whether you're
about
on there or
forget
not.
about the tip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless you happen to have all those records. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you're in mediation, we don't have the power of subpoena, by the way, because there's no attorneys on record. So we work on face-up poker, I call it. Everybody produces as much as they can and they at that grunt. So like we were talking about when Ken was working on that case, they went back 7 years.
Yeah.
And they pulled all the documents. Guess what mediation does? It gives you confidentiality. Maybe your spouse doesn't want it revealed that he or she has been in an affair for years or has a drug problem and they're going to potentially lose a job off. It's going to become public record. So before you litigate, if you haven't already gone that path, a lot of people are able to convince their spouse, look, why don't we mediate? I'm not happy with what's happened, but I can offer you confidentiality because the system offers you that. And in exchange, you're going to give me face-up poker. You're going to give me the statements. I actually have a lot of clients with addiction issues, and they come for the confidentiality. Even the case Ken worked on, he was consulting attorney. It was a hot case. Lots of emotion in that case. You don't have to be friends. It can be heated. The training, if the mediator is well trained, as part of our training, is to manage high conflict personalities and situational stress. And it's a safe and confidential place, so we can bring the temperature down and help you look at the documents and the data. Okay. So,
Yeah, to that point, Laura, the settlement agreement, the judgment in that case said nothing about, the husband was creeping around hotels. So it just says the communities do a reimbursement, wife will be paid. Very sterile, vanilla. No one's ever going to know anything.
Exactly. So that there's a real value. And so if you're in the contemplation or early stages and you have a spouse who's not been, there's infidelity of some kind, financial, emotional, whatever, you can say, look, I'm not happy about it. I'm emotionally distraught, probably going to need some therapy over this, which in this particular case Ken worked on, she required that he pay for therapy.
Yeah.
She had PTSD as a result of some of the things that went on, and he agreed. That was part of her negotiating. I don't know. Would a judge give you that, Ken?
No.
Full answer.
Yeah. It just, of course, everything's on the table, supposedly, and because courts, family law courts are courts of equity, but the reality is,
here's your spousal support. Use it for your therapy. Use it for your therapy. You don't also get a therapy account, which in this case, that's what happened. So there's so much more flexibility and versatility when you're in a mediated environment to offer each other confidentiality. And again, like nobody assumes a mortgage in divorce. I had a trial attorney call me up and actually asked me for some real estate clauses for a delayed sale because he said, you know what, nobody gets the house in litigation because they run out of it.
It's ordered sold, not for sold. Yeah.
And they says, can you send me over a couple of your clauses? And I thought, happy to do that.
Yeah, I have nothing like that because
you never have to write them.
Ever.
Yeah, there's going to be a delayed sale. Someone's going to assume the mortgage, and then they're going to give them 5 more years on the mortgage.
What?
Yeah, I write those deals. So, we're not laughing at you. We're laughing about how preposterous it is to think that a court system will solve your problems. It's not a very good problem solver.
It's not.
Hey, Laura, there was a couple of questions that one of them just came in, and his husband wants to keep the house with the low interest. The bank will do an assumption, but the husband doesn't want to give something extra in exchange. Can he still try and do the assumption if I disagree with it?
No.
Going to be signing off on it.
Yeah.
So you can, he can, these are proposals. This is a negotiation. So if he says, I'd like to be able to assume the mortgage, first of all, you're going to be stuck on that mortgage until he assumes it. Right? So he's keeping you on there. He's getting the home at this extended mortgage. So he's getting a gift from you, not from the bank, from you.
Yeah.
You're giving him the right to assume a mortgage the two of you qualified for, not him.
Yeah.
You've qualified together. So if he wants
That's a
to be
great
gifted,
point. That is a great
It
point.
sure
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
if he wants to be gifted from you the right to assume your joint mortgage, what would he like to gift you in return?
I like
His
that.
value in that interest rate that he would be assuming is insurmountable compared to, I mean, I don't know what the amount due is, but that rate, it sounds like you just can't get that today.
Look at somebody's life. How does that? Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Can we dig just a second deeper in that? Because if that was Emily and I, Emily was my husband, or Ken and, Ken and I.
Emma's your wife. What are you talking about? He broke.
I feel like that spread is so great because that could be a 3% or even a 2.9% interest rate. And now we're talking about a 6.5 today, right? You did it just go.
Yeah. Low sixes.
So do you do that? Hey, this ex-spouse or the out spouse, the person that's going to be leaving, has to buy at a 6.5% interest rate. Is it dollar for dollar like that? Like, how does that even? That's
dollar for dollar.
when you think about that. Yeah.
But in a negotiated, as a mediator, my role is to inform, educate, and that people make proposals. So when someone says to me, I want to assume the mortgage, I'm like, great, let's talk about what that's going to get you. And so that's ChatGPT or Claude's going to help you go side by side. If I have 25 years left on this mortgage and I have this property tax basis because we bought the home, over the next, let's even call it 15 years, because I'll probably sell the home when the child graduates or something. You don't want a big home. How much am I going to be spending? And then if I have to buy a similar property so I can also have our 3 kids come over, and it's going to cost me X at this mortgage rate with this property tax burden, we're going to compare the 15-year or the 10-year, whatever you think's realistic, side by side. Oh, guess what? You spent 1 million, but I spent 2. It could be that bad. Could be that bad. To provide similar housing so I could be an equal parent with our children, not rich house, poor house. So when he says, I'm not doing it, get on it. Like, okay, fine. I don't have to sign the right for you to assume. Because
Which is why the decision of selling the home sometimes ends up being the best, because it puts both parties on the neutral ground. They start out at the same level moving forward, right? Isn't that usually how?
I think you're never, ever going to get a 2.9, 3.2, not in your lifetime.
No, not in this lifetime.
First property I bought, 1986. I was in Canada at the time, but the interest rate was 16%.
I remember those in California. Yeah.
Yeah. So guess what? If you think 5 or 6 sounds bad or hard, that what happened during COVID, that's never happening in your lifetime.
And not on his
lifetime. Exactly. So
Never.
I say this. Right now, the family has something so precious that will never happen again. The family, especially when there's children. And one of you will be able to raise the children in the family home, and therefore somebody won't need as much support, right?
Yeah.
Or they can pay more support. The high state. They can
It's an
afford to pay.
exchange. Yeah.
Now we need an ability to pay. My ability to pay went way up, or my needs went way down. It can play into spousal support and in particular child support. So the beautiful thing in a mediated environment, we move beyond the assets to let's reality test what this means. It's not just a house. It's like a life insurance policy that's termed. People are like, this has no value. I'm like, you'll never be as young or as healthy as you were when you bought it. And so it has value. And the value is if you die while there's still children or support payable, that needs to be held in place because that policy price is based on when you bought it during your marriage. And so doesn't have a cash value, but it's incredibly valuable. And we need to talk about it as yet another asset, even though we can't cash it in.
Yeah.
Because it goes into what you always say too, is your children will write your divorce story for you. And so it is adulting. Divorce is adulting. You have to really stomach a lot, just emotionally and all of that by adulting. So by keeping whoever is the out spouse of the house, That's a hard thing to swallow, but you're keeping your children in something and they're writing that divorce story. So I love that. That was a great button up for that question. Yeah.
Helpful. And even I'll just throw another piece on the house. I just had clients today. Wife is buying the house out and there's 3 children. And so I say, well, a nice thing to do, because you're going to have home court advantage, is the children's bedroom furniture is all going to go to dad's house. And you get to have the fun of helping the kids pick up their new bedroom furniture in your house, and they have a feeling of that other home court advantage at dad's new house.
What's that?
Yeah. So because I'm also co-parenting specialist, I'm trying to wrap in all these layers. It's not just a home. It's something that you acquired together and it has value to how you want to raise your children. And whether you sell the house and you each pay $4,000 a month in rent, or you keep all your costs down, there's more money to spend on the family.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So again, Ken, does that happen in the litigated world?
Not at all. It's just
I'm probably giving it.
Those
You
things
don't
aren't even
talk about
funny.
bedroom furniture.
So sometimes people do, and it's in the context of insanity where people are trying to fight about the tiniest little
The dog.
the furniture, like the tchotchkes they got down in
Yeah.
the Bahamas or whatever. But
I generally say let's not negotiate the furniture. That's a Monty Python sketch you don't want to buy. But
It's-
I do say, if we can talk about it in the parenting context, that if somebody retains home court advantage, we want to acknowledge that. And in order to level the playing field somewhat, what can we bring that is a house home reminder and helps the children transition instead of, and so I'm, like I say, part of the wonderful part of being a mediator is you can help people to think very holistically. It's an asset, but it's a home, and it's part of how you want to raise your children. It's maybe in their school district, and maybe there's going to be a pet, and maybe the person that's going to rent for a while doesn't want to pay pet rent or can't take their 50-pound Rottweiler there. So all of these things we can think of, take them out of strictly asset into how are they shaping the family and the next chapter.
yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And so the AI is just going to be a small role, but it's really an exciting opportunity. Fine tune, educate, inform, connect. I think it's an opportunity to us all to be more deeply engaged and take agency over this is my life. Here's how much money I really have. Here's how much money I was spending. Ooh, that's going to change. And just get real with yourself. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to ground yourself in what your new reality is going to be and be practical.
It's a great place to brain dump and just get it all out. And again, it just helps you ask better questions. So rather than going into all these professionals in a frazzled state, overwhelmed and all that, it just helps you organize everything first and be able to come in with a little bit more clarity and then use the guidance of the professionals from there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Loved your prompts too, by the way. This has been such a pleasure. This is our first time doing this particular topic, and come on back for more. We're here every month. Next month, we're going to be talking about tips to literally save you thousands on your divorce, which I think we already covered tonight significantly, but we'll cover it from a different angle. And we're going to go back to having some live webinars for those of you in the San Diego area, I think starting in September, I believe. But you can check in with Vesta. The concierge will be reaching out to every one of you, follows up, let's connect. They'll connect you to anybody you might want to be connected with. We're the Carlsbad hub, but there's several hubs. There was a question, can I be a divorce coach for somebody outside of California? If you're talking co-parenting, but really part of my specialty is because I'm legally trained and I'm a mediator, I really help people that are either mediating with a different mediator, contemplating divorce, helping them to get started and get to someone like Ken if it turns into a litigated matter. So I bring all the co-parenting expertise and everything, but my coaching has a legal strategy approach to it. And I don't work outside of California from a legal strategy point of view. I have worked with people that just want help with parenting, because that's my other specialty, and help them to think about parent planning. So simple answer there is if it's beyond parenting, probably there's better people and Vesta can connect you because that's what they do. Okay. All right. Thanks again to everybody that joined us. It's really our pleasure to be able to serve all of you. Y'all come back.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya. Thank you.
Thank you.